I'm Laura Kunitz. I lead employee listening and engagement at C.H. Robinson. I've been there about 4 years, and really the role is really about understanding our people better so that we're able to make data-driven decisions to enable both business outcomes and really positive employee experiences. That's a really good question, and I think there are a few answers, but the biggest one that I see is this disparate experience, or this thought that employees have these individual needs that now are becoming more known than ever. People are comfortable expressing their need for flexibility or their desire to maybe have more mobility where they hadn't prior. But at the same time, a lot of organizations have very strong cultures, and they've built them over years. And so there's this feeling, almost this fear of, well, if we start having these individual focuses, we might lose some of that culture. And what does that mean for our culture? And so I think that there's an opportunity there to really, as organizations start kind of coming back into their new normal, embrace their culture that they've created, but also to see some of the things we've learned over the course of the pandemic and see where there are needs for individuals to have their own kind of support and experience, and make sure that that can happen in the context of an organization. So the example I think about is, as a lot of companies are moving to hybrid work, traditionally at my organization, we're really heavy into collaborating. So we come together, we collaborate, we solve problems. There was some fear when we moved to a hybrid model that, how will we be able to continue to collaborate? But also knowing that our employees wanted more autonomy in how and when they work. And so for us in our journey to hybrid, it's really about, again, understanding individual preferences and needs, understanding within teams how those dynamics work, and allowing teams, giving them the autonomy to create those new norms, to have an in-office presence that resonates for those individuals, for those teams, but also is getting to the productivity and the outcomes that we need to be seeing. I think the biggest one is that empathy has a place in the workplace. People come to work for many reasons, and they all have things happening in their lives. And I think in the pre-2 years ago, or like pre-pandemic, there's kind of the sense of you come to work, you show up, and you act a certain way, and the company kind of treats you accordingly. There's a profile that you're trying to meet when you're at work. Now, I think a big learning was, we need to look empathetically at what our employees are experiencing every day, what their individual situation is, and truly understand segments of our employees and those specific needs, because we're going to lose them. If we can't support individual needs, they're going to find another employer or a place that will. And so it behooves us to grow that muscle of learning about, setting biases aside, learning from different people's perspectives, what's needed, where maybe we can improve as an organization, or maybe where we need to do more listening and less kind of assuming. Yeah, I think just the appetite for learning more from employees has grown significantly. So I think about 2 years ago, and yes, we were doing annual surveys. We were learning about our employees through both, quantitative measures, but we weren't always doing more than that. And in the last 2 years, as soon as our company went remote, there was just this desire to understand, where employees were at, what they needed, what they were doing, how we could support them. And I feel like that's only continued to evolve throughout the last 2 years. It's kind of like data begets data. Once you have some information, you can act on it, and then you seek more. A great example for us was at the beginning of the pandemic. We really wanted to understand what it would take for employees to feel comfortable coming back to the physical workspace. And so we identified those top 3 things with our employee base, and the executive team used that to communicate throughout, the year 2 years. These are the criteria you told us you would need to see in order to feel comfortable coming back. And so for us, I feel like that was kind of the beginning of a shift of, we're using this data. We're not only action planning yearly or talking at teams, but we're taking your input and understanding what would make you feel safe to come back, and continuing that conversation, which we have as we've evolved our hybrid model a couple of times during that period. From my perspective, a lot of it is around understanding goals and objectives, but also having support for that work-life balance. And when maybe the balance is the scales are tipping too much one way or another, being able to have open conversations about what it will take to get back in balance. So I think just supporting employees where they're at, being open with conversations about what they need, and very clear about what those expectations are, and if those are being met or not. We started rolling out a hybrid model back in summer of 2021. We got really positive responses, favorability to that, but we did segment it out into 4 distinct groups based on job descriptions as to how many days in the office were expected. And while, again, we got really positive feedback on the additional flexibility, because traditionally we hadn't really been a very flexible company, there was still a need for additional autonomy. And we heard from our employees in subsequent survey that, basically, thank you, and we want a little more autonomy in when we come together. And so I would say we've really learned along the way, kind of letting our employees guide us, what their needs and wants were. And then as a senior leadership team, that team has really taken that feedback and continued to evolve our hybrid model, so that at this point in time, we're at a place where teams are coming together for moments that matter. There isn't a prescribed amount of days, but rather conversations within teams to decide what the norms are for a team when they would come to the office, what meetings look like, for example. My team is dedicated to coming once a month at least to be in person. Some other teams have more often they're in the office, but really taking away from that kind of static, here are the requirements, to more of a, all right, we're gonna let your teams figure it out more. So I would say we've really used the data every step of the way to enhance and kind of, as I like to say, we go from V1 to V2, and then, we intend to continue getting feedback and taking action in that way. Within our Perceptics platform, our employee engagement strategy annual census survey is always going to be the backbone of our listening. It's something we come back to year over year, and we're really understanding where employees are at. In addition to that, we leverage our exit survey data as well as onboarding and manager effectiveness surveys to really get a clearer picture. And our analytics team brings that data into projects that they're involved in to make sure that those data insights are infused into our project work, so that, again, we're in a position to make recommendations where decisions can be made based on employee data. In addition to that, we're starting to expand into having more pulse surveys driven by smaller projects, so not like the longitudinal cyclical surveys, but just point in time. And we haven't yet dabbled in crowdsourcing, but we're really kind of pointing towards crowdsourcing as kind of the next step to have more of that bottoms-up approach of really starting to have our employees put action together and essentially rank for us what needs to be worked on at any given time. Well, this is a really easy question because my experience has been amazing. I always say I think of the Perceptics team just like an extension of my team. I've never gone with a question or an idea and had them not be willing to sit down and think it through with me and come up with a solution or a way forward. So I really value that partnership, and I enjoy having them be part of my team. Organizational effectiveness means something different to every company, I've started to learn. And so as we're kind of evolving in this space, I think organizational effectiveness is all about understanding how organizations work, how the talent is working and how they're perceiving their working environment, and using data and analytics to help improve those processes. And not just make a standard process, but also just like curate things for people. And so I would love to see this space really grow into the employee experience space. And that might mean something different, slightly different for different companies. So employee experience can be defined a myriad of ways. My personal belief is that in the context of your organization, that's the best place to start. Like, what are the things that resonate to define what employee experience is? And then how do you start creating within your culture really great experiences for people? And not just, okay, they onboarded and they had a good time, but critically assessing moments that matter throughout the day, throughout the year, throughout certain milestones, and how people are perceiving them, how they feel during them, and just infusing that into the culture. So something that I've been thinking a lot about lately when it comes to experience is that oftentimes people think, okay, well, it's great to have somebody have a good day at work, but we're here to get work done and the job done. And they're not mutually exclusive. You can achieve business outcomes and also achieve great employee experiences. And I strongly feel that as the analytics world continues to evolve, the people analytics world, and as organizational effectiveness and looking at organizations and finding ways to optimize both the people and the outcomes, to me, the obvious kind of place to focus in the future is that overall employee experience, doing it through data, both qualitative and quantitative, and really, again, achieving both business outcomes and really great people experiences.